Imagine an animal so strange that when scientists first saw it, they thought it was fake. A body like a beaver, a bill like a duck, feet like an otter, and somehow it's a mammal. But the strangest part, it doesn't have nipples. Yet it feeds its baby's milk. This is the platypus, and yes, this mammal literally sweats milk. When European scientists first examined a platypus specimen in the late 1700s, they suspected someone had stitched different animals together as a joke. A duck's bill sewn onto a mammal's body, impossible. But the platypus was very real, living quietly in the rivers of Australia. And the more scientists studied it, the stranger it became. Let's start with the basics. Mammals are defined by one key feature. They produce milk to feed their young. Most mammals have nipples. The platypus does not. Instead, female platypuses have specialized mammary glands that release milk directly through tiny openings in their skin. The milk seeps out and pools in grooves along the mother's abdomen. The babies then lap it up from her fur. It's not nursing the way we usually imagine. It's closer to sweating milk. Why would evolution design something so unusual? The answer lies in how ancient this animal is. The platypus belongs to a very small group of mammals called monotreme egg-laying mammals. They split off from other mammals about 200 million years ago. That means they retain some reptile-like traits while also having true mammalian features. They lay eggs like reptiles, but feed their young with milk like mammals. They are, in a way, living fossil snapshots of early mammalian evolution. And the milk itself is special. Scientists have discovered that platypus milk contains powerful antibacterial properties. Since the babies hatch from eggs and develop in a burrow environment filled with moisture and bacteria, this milk helps protect them from infections. So what looks strange to us is actually a brilliant survival adaptation. But the weirdness doesn't stop there. Male platypuses have venomous spurs on their hind legs. During breeding season, they can deliver a sting so painful that victims describe it as excruciating and long-lasting. It won't usually kill a human, but the pain can persist for weeks. Venom is extremely rare in mammals, making the platypus even more extraordinary. Then there's the bill. It's not just for show. The platypus hunts underwater with its eyes, ears, and nostrils closed. Instead of relying on sight, it uses its bill to detect the faint electrical fields generated by the muscle contractions of its prey. It's a sixth sense, allowing it to find insects and crustaceans hidden in the murky riverbed. Welcome back. Last time, we dove into the bizarre and wonderful world of the platypus, this incredible egg-laying, venomous, milk-sweating mammal. But the story doesn't end there. Today, we're going on a journey through time into its DNA and across cultures to truly understand what makes the platypus one of the most fascinating creatures on Earth. So, how old is the platypus, really? Well, imagine a world where dinosaurs still roamed. That's where the platypus story begins. Fossil evidence suggests that ancestors of the modern platypus were paddling around in the waterways of the supercontinent Gondwana over 120 million years ago. Think about that for a second. The platypus lineage has survived mass extinctions, ice ages, and dramatic changes to the planet that wiped out countless other species. They are living fossils, a direct link to a very different, ancient world. When scientists first sequenced the platypus genome, it was like opening a biological treasure chest. What they found was a mind-boggling mosaic of genes. It has genes you'd expect in a mammal, sure, but it also shares a significant number with birds and reptiles. It's this genetic cocktail that explains its strange mix of features. The genes for egg-laying, similar to reptiles. The genes for venom production. Again, they found parallels in the reptile world. And the genes for lactation? Uniquely mammalian, but with a primitive twist, as we discussed with the milk sweating. But the weirdness doesn't stop at the genes themselves. It extends to how they're organized. Most mammals, including us humans, have two sex chromosomes, 20 for female and X, Y for male. Simple enough, right? The platypus looks at that system and laughs. It has 10 sex chromosomes, 5X and 5Y chromosomes in males, and 10X chromosomes in females. This system is completely unique among mammals and has more in common with how some plants determine sex than with any of its furry relatives. It's a genetic puzzle that scientists are still working to fully understand, and it highlights just how far back the platypus branched off the main mammalian evolutionary tree. It took its own path, and that path was wonderfully weird. Long before European scientists were baffled by dried platypus skins, this animal held a deep cultural significance for the indigenous peoples of Australia. It wasn't just an animal. It was a part of their stories, their laws, and their understanding of the world. In many Aboriginal creation stories, or dreaming stories, the platypus is a symbol of unity and the importance of community. One popular story tells of a young duck who, despite warnings from her tribe, ventured away and was captured by a lonely water rat. She eventually escaped and returned to her family, but later laid to eggs that hatched not into fluffy ducklings, but into creatures with the bill and webbed feet of a duck and the fur and tail of a rat. These were the first platypuses. The story teaches that they were special because they belonged to two different worlds. And it serves as a powerful lesson about respecting differences, accepting those who are unique, and the consequences of straying from one's community. The platypus, in this context, is a bridge between different groups, a reminder that identity can be complex and multifaceted. It's a much more profound way of looking at the animal than just calling it a mistake or a hoax. Given its unique place in the world, you might be wondering, how is the platypus doing today? The answer is complicated. For a long time, the platypus was considered relatively common in its habitat across eastern Australia and Tasmania. However, that picture is changing, and there's growing concern among conservationists. The International Union for Conservation of Nature, or IUCN, currently lists the platypus as near threatened. This means it's not endangered yet, but its populations are declining, and it could face a real threat of extinction in the near future without intervention. So, what are the threats? First and foremost is habitat loss and degradation. Platypuses rely on healthy freshwater, rivers, and streams. Urban development, land clearing for agriculture, and dam construction all fragment and destroy their homes. They need stable riverbanks to dig their burrows, and when these are eroded by livestock or cleared vegetation, they have nowhere to live and raise their young. Pollution is another major problem. Runoff from farms and cities can poison the waterways, killing the small aquatic invertebrates that make up the platypus's diet. If their food source disappears, the platypuses disappear too. And then there's the danger of human-made objects. Things like fishing lines, nets, and even simple plastic rings can be deadly. Platypuses can get entangled in them, leading to injury, drowning, or starvation. But perhaps the biggest looming threat is climate change. Australia is a continent of extremes, and recent years have seen devastating droughts and bushfires. The 2019 to 2020 Black Summer bushfires were a catastrophic event. Huge swaths of platypus habitat were incinerated, and many of the rivers they lived in either dried up completely or were filled with toxic ash and sediment after the rains finally came. For an animal that lives its life in and around water, a prolonged drought is a death sentence. As climate change makes these extreme weather events more frequent and more severe, the pressure on the platypus population will only increase. But it's not all bad news. There are dedicated people and organizations across Australia working tirelessly to protect this amazing animal. Conservation efforts are focused on several key areas. Scientists are using new technologies like eDNA sampling, where they can detect the presence of platypuses just from a water sample, to get a much better idea of where they live and how their populations are doing. This data is crucial for targeting conservation efforts where they're needed most. Habitat restoration projects are also underway. These involve replanting native vegetation along riverbanks to stabilize them and provide cover for the platypuses. Fencing off rivers to keep livestock out can make a huge difference in improving water quality and bank structure. There are also public awareness campaigns to encourage people to dispose of their trash responsibly and to use wildlife-friendly fishing gear. In some areas affected by drought, rescue missions have even been launched to move platypuses from drying rivers to safer locations. From a 120-million-year-old survivor to a genetic marvel with 10 sex chromosomes, a cultural icon, and now a species facing an uncertain future, the platypus is so much more than just a quirky animal. It's a symbol of evolutionary uniqueness, a living library of ancient genetic information, and a critical indicator of the health of our freshwater ecosystems. Protecting the platypus means protecting our rivers, and in doing so, we protect the countless other species that depend on them. The story of the platypus is a reminder that the world is full of wonder and that we have a responsibility to preserve it. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. If you found this as fascinating as I do, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. See you next time.